When a waitress served Barron Trump at a quiet cafe, she never imagined the impact it would have. It was a peaceful morning in a small, unassuming cafe nestled in a corner of the city, tucked away from the usual hustle and bustle. The aroma of freshly brewed espresso filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of baked goods and the hum of quiet conversation. It was one of those mornings where time seemed to slow down. The world outside was moving fast, but inside the cafe, everything felt calm and serene. Emma, the waitress, had been working at the cafe for over 2 years. She knew the routine well. The regulars came in every day, ordered their usual coffee or croissants, and exchanged friendly banter. For her, it was just another shift, another day of serving coffee and making small talk. She had seen it all before, the steady stream of customers, the rush of orders, and the occasional awkward silence. It was a job that required patience, attention to detail, and a smile, even on the toughest days. That particular morning, however, would turn out to be anything but ordinary. Barron Trump, dressed casually in a simple jacket and jeans, walked into the cafe. Emma barely noticed him at first, thinking he was just another customer. It wasn't unusual to see people from all walks of life pass through the cafe's doors. She didn't recognize him immediately, and he didn't make a scene. He simply walked up to the counter, took a seat at a table by the window, and glanced at the menu. "Good morning," Emma greeted him as she approached his table, her voice warm and polite. "Can I get you anything?" He looked up at her with a calm demeanor and smiled faintly. "Just a black coffee, please," he replied, his tone steady, almost like any other customer she had served. Emma nodded and made a mental note of the order. "Coming right up." As she made her way back to the counter to prepare the coffee, she noticed something about Barron. There was something different about him, something that made her pause for a second. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, or perhaps it was just the quiet nature of his presence in the otherwise bustling cafe. He wasn't drawing attention to himself, yet there was a sense of calm around him. Emma didn't think too much of it. It was just another regular customer to serve. She got to work quickly, grinding the coffee beans, steaming the milk, and making the perfect cup of coffee. It was the one thing she prided herself on, getting the coffee just right. When she returned with the cup of coffee, she set it on his table and smiled. "Here you go, 1 black coffee," she said. Barron looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers. There was no rush in his movements, no impatience. "You think that's little of me, Goro?" he said softly, his voice surprisingly gentle and making sure the cafe ran smoothly. Emma returned to her tasks, taking orders, clearing tables, and making sure the cafe ran smoothly. The day drifted by slowly, like many others. But there was something different today. Maybe it was the quietness of Barron's presence, or maybe it was the sense of anticipation in the air. Emma couldn't quite put her finger on it. An hour passed, and Barron finished his coffee. Emma was back behind the counter, wiping down the surfaces, when she noticed him getting up. He slowly walked toward the door, his pace unhurried, as if he didn't have a care in the world. She went about her business, thinking he was just another customer leaving the cafe. But as he reached the door, Barron turned back and walked over to his table one last time. Emma saw him reach for a napkin from the dispenser, pick up a pen from his jacket pocket, and begin writing something on the napkin. Curious, Emma watched him, her interest piqued. What was he doing? Barron finished writing and folded the napkin neatly. He placed it on the table along with a generous tip. Then, without a word, he walked out of the cafe, disappearing into the morning crowd. Emma stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what had just happened. She hadn't expected anything out of the ordinary, yet here she was, looking at the folded napkin in front of her. She walked over slowly, unsure of what to expect, and picked it up carefully. When she unfolded it, she saw a simple note written in neat handwriting. The words were short, but they held so much meaning. "Thank you for your kindness. You matter more than you know. Keep your head up. Brighter days are ahead." A rush of emotion flooded Emma as she read the words. They were so simple, yet they struck her deeply. She could feel the weight of them. The kindness in those words seemed to reach right into her heart. But what caught her attention even more was the tip. Barron had left more than just a few dollars. It was a tip that was far more generous than she could have ever imagined. Emma's mind raced. Was this real? Had he really left this much? Tears welled up in her eyes as she stood there in disbelief. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, as though something inside her had shifted. This wasn't just a tip. It was a message. A reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures could have the biggest impact. She didn't know why Barron had left the note or the tip, but in that moment, it felt like the universe had sent her a sign. Emma took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. She didn't want to break down in front of the other customers, but it was hard to hold back the emotions that were bubbling up inside her. The generosity, the kindness, and the unexpected words of encouragement had shaken her. What Emma didn't know was that this small act of kindness would ripple out far beyond the walls of the cafe. The next day, the story went viral. A local news outlet picked up the story of the waitress and the unexpected note from Barron Trump, and soon it was everywhere. Social media exploded with reactions. People from across the country were sharing the story, commenting on how such a small act could make such a big difference. Some were amazed by Barron's thoughtfulness. Others were inspired by the message of hope and kindness. Soon, Emma found herself interviewed by news outlets. She had never imagined that something as simple as serving coffee would lead to so much attention. But despite the fame, what really stuck with her was the note. It had reminded her of the power of kindness, how even the smallest gesture could make someone's day. As she reflected on that morning, Emma realized that Barron's act wasn't just about the money or the note. It was about giving someone hope when they least expected it. It was about showing that, in a world full of uncertainty, there were still people out there who cared. And for Emma, that morning would be a memory she would carry with her forever.